The lion visits his dying benefactor. What happens next is unbelievable. The monitors beeped steadily in room 304 of Mercy General Hospital as Dr. Sarah Mitchell reviewed William Harrison's chart. Terminal pancreatic cancer, stage 4. 3 weeks remaining at best. The 76-year-old retired zoologist had refused further treatment, opting instead for palliative care, and, in his words, a dignified exit on my own terms. What Dr. Mitchell couldn't possibly have anticipated was the phone call she would receive the following morning. "This is highly irregular, Mr. Thompson," Dr. Mitchell said into her office phone, nervously adjusting her glasses. "What you're suggesting simply isn't possible within hospital regulations." "I understand your concerns, Doctor," replied Robert Thompson, director of the Oakdale Wildlife Sanctuary. "But William Harrison isn't just our founder. For 30 years, he hand-raised dozens of orphan big cats, including Simba. Their connection defies conventional explanation. Mr. Thompson, you're asking me to allow a full-grown male lion into a hospital room." "Simba is 22 years old," Thompson interrupted. "That's elderly for a lion. He's been vaccinated, regularly examined, and has never shown aggression toward humans. Since William's hospitalization, he's refused food and spends his days pacing and calling out. It's still a wild animal. With all due respect, Dr. Mitchell, William has days left. This is his final request. We've made arrangements with hospital administration and security. 4 experienced handlers will be present at all times." Dr. Mitchell sighed, glancing at William's scans on her computer screen. "The hospital administrator approved this? Call her yourself. We've been working on the arrangements for 3 days." The following night, Dr. Mitchell found herself standing in William's dimly lit room, watching as 4 men carefully guided a surprisingly calm male lion through the door. Despite her medical training and years of emergency room experience, nothing had prepared her for this moment. The massive cat moved with deliberate grace, his amber eyes immediately fixing on the frail figure in the hospital bed. William, who had been drifting in and out of consciousness throughout the day, opened his eyes. A smile transformed his pain-lined face as he weakly raised a hand. "Simba," he whispered, "you came." What happened next astonished everyone present. The lion approached the bed slowly, handlers tensed and ready to intervene. But instead of any aggression, Simba gently placed his massive head against William's outstretched hand, then carefully, with what could only be described as tenderness, climbed partially onto the bed and nestled his head against the elderly man's chest. William's withered hand stroked the lion's mane as tears streamed down his face. "My boy," he murmured, "my beautiful boy." The handlers exchanged bewildered glances. Even they, who had worked with Simba for years, had never witnessed behavior like this. Dr. Mitchell stood transfixed, medical clipboard forgotten in her hands. "William found Simba as a cub," Thompson explained quietly, moving to stand beside her. "Poachers had killed his mother. The cub was malnourished, infected with parasites, and had a badly broken leg. Any other conservationist would have euthanized him. But William hand-fed that cub every 2 hours for weeks, slept beside him on the floor of his cabin, set and reset that leg until it healed properly." "How long were they together?" 15 years, day and night, before William's retirement 7 years ago. Even after that, he visited weekly until his diagnosis 3 months ago. For 2 hours, the lion remained with William, sometimes shifting position, but always maintaining physical contact. The elderly man drifted in and out of sleep, but each time he woke, his hand would immediately seek out the lion's mane, as if reassuring himself that Simba was still there. Dr. Mitchell checked William's vitals periodically, noting with surprise that his blood pressure had stabilized and his pain indicators had decreased significantly. The sense of peace in the room was palpable. As dawn approached, Thompson gently suggested it was time to return Simba to the sanctuary. The handlers prepared to separate the pair, a task they approached with visible apprehension. "Wait," William said, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "There's an envelope in the bedside drawer. Robert, please." Thompson retrieved a sealed envelope with Dr. Mitchell's name written on it. She opened it, finding a notarized legal document inside. "I've made arrangements," William explained, his hand still buried in Simba's mane. "I don't want to die here. I want to go home to my cabin at the sanctuary. I've signed a release of liability for the hospital. My lawyer has all the paperwork for hospice care to be provided there. Dr. Mitchell scanned the document, then looked at the patient. Medical protocol dictated she should refuse. Moving a terminal patient to an uncontrolled environment went against best practices. But as she watched William's face, more peaceful and alive than she'd seen since his admission, she found her professional objections giving way to a deeper understanding. "I'll need to make some calls," she said finally. "And there are protocols even for compassionate release. But I'll do everything I can." William nodded, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you." He turned his attention back to Simba, whispering something into the lion's ear that made the great cat press even closer to him. 3 days later, a specially equipped medical transport arrived at the gates of Oakdale Wildlife Sanctuary. The rural facility, nestled on 200 acres of protected woodland, 2 hours outside Minneapolis, had been William Harrison's life's work. Dr. Mitchell had insisted on accompanying William personally, monitoring his condition throughout the journey. As the ambulance approached a modest cabin set apart from the main sanctuary buildings, she noticed the unmistakable sound of lions calling to each other in the distance, a chorus that intensified as the vehicle came to a stop. "They know," William said, a weak smile crossing his face. "Animals always know." Inside, Dr. Mitchell was surprised to find a space already prepared, with hospital-grade equipment seamlessly integrated into the rustic living area. Large windows offered views of the surrounding woods, and in the distance, the sanctuary's enclosures. "Hospice delivered everything yesterday," explained Thompson. "We have a nurse arriving within the hour." "And Simba?" "His enclosure connects to the cabin through a specially designed passage William installed years ago. There's a series of safety doors and protocols." After settling William and ensuring his medication pump was properly functioning, Dr. Mitchell stepped onto the cabin's covered porch with Thompson. "What will happen to them all?" she asked. "After William?" Thompson sighed. "William established an endowment years ago. The sanctuary will continue. But Simba—" He trailed off, looking toward the largest enclosure visible through the trees. "Lions are resilient, but when they form strong bonds, they can decline rapidly when those bonds are broken." Inside, the hospice nurse had arrived. Martha Edwards was in her 60s with a no-nonsense manner that softened when she addressed her patient. "So I understand there's another caregiver in the picture," she said to William, adjusting his pillows. "When do I get to meet him?" For the first time since leaving the hospital, William chuckled. "Soon," he promised, "after sunset." As darkness fell, Dr. Mitchell prepared to return to the city. Before leaving, she checked his vitals one final time. "Your numbers are better than they've been in weeks," she noted with surprise. "Blood pressure normalized, heart rate steady." "Being home is the best medicine," William replied. Then with a conspirator's smile, he added, "But I'd appreciate if you could stay just a little longer. There's something I'd like you to witness." An hour later, as stars appeared in the clear Minnesota sky, Thompson entered the cabin and approached William's bed. "Ready?" he asked softly. William nodded. Thompson moved to a control panel mounted on the wall and pressed a series of buttons. Dr. Mitchell heard mechanical sounds, safety mechanisms disengaging, and then the soft rumble of a large door sliding open. For several long moments, nothing happened. Then, padding silently into the room, came Simba. The lion moved with deliberate grace. When his amber eyes found William, he made a soft chuffing sound, a greeting Dr. Mitchell recognized from nature documentaries. A sound big cats made only when completely at ease. "Hey, old friend," William whispered as Simba gently rested his head on the edge of the bed. With trembling hands, he stroked the lion's mane. "I told you we'd come home." What happened next defied everything Dr. Mitchell had been taught about wild animals. With extraordinary care, the lion eased himself onto the reinforced bed frame, arranging his massive body alongside William's frail form, mindful of the medical equipment. Unsettled, he rested his head against William's chest, a deep rumbling purr filling the room. "His heartbeat," William explained, seeing Dr. Mitchell's astonished expression. "Lions can hear heartbeats from great distances. Simba's been listening to mine since he was a cub." "This is remarkable," Dr. Mitchell managed. "I've never seen anything like it." "Most people haven't," William agreed. "We underestimate the emotional capacity of animals, their ability to form bonds, to grieve, to remember." Over the next week, Dr. Mitchell visited daily, documenting William's condition. What she observed defied medical explanation. Though the cancer continued its inevitable course, William's decline was nothing like the rapid deterioration she had expected. He remained alert, engaged, and in significantly less pain than comparable hospice patients. More remarkable still was Simba's behavior. The lion had established a routine, spending most of each day and night with William, occasionally retreating through the special passage to his enclosure before returning. "He knows," William told her during her 8th visit. "Animals understand death better than we do. They don't fear it the way humans do." On the 10th day, Dr. Mitchell arrived to find William noticeably weaker. Martha reported he had refused food and required increased pain management overnight. Simba lay beside him as always, but the lion's behavior had subtly changed. He was more alert, his massive head raised often to study William's face, occasionally making soft vocalizations that sounded almost like inquiries. "I think we're near the end," William whispered when she checked his vital signs. "Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow." Dr. Mitchell nodded. "Would you like me to stay?" "Please," he said. "And could you do something else for me?" He gestured weakly toward a worn leather journal on the nearby table. "My observations. 40 years of work with big cats. The last entries are about this, about Simba's behavior during my illness. It may help others understand what I've always known about their emotional capacity." That night, William's condition deteriorated rapidly. His breathing became labored, his periods of consciousness briefer. Through it all, Simba remained vigilant, occasionally licking William's hand with his rough tongue, a gesture that always seemed to momentarily ease the dying man's distress. Shortly after midnight, William opened his eyes with sudden clarity. "Robert," he called softly to Thompson, who had remained at the cabin, "initiate the contingency plan we discussed." Thompson nodded, his expression solemn. "I remember. We're prepared just as you wanted." William turned to Dr. Mitchell. "Simba is 22, elderly for a lion. When I'm gone—" He paused, gathering strength. "The plan is to allow him to live out his days here in this cabin, in his connected enclosure, his familiar territory. Promise me you'll help ensure that happens." "I promise," she said, understanding now why he had wanted her to witness this extraordinary bond. As dawn approached, William's breathing became more erratic. The monitors showed his heart rate slowing. Dr. Mitchell administered additional morphine for comfort, though William appeared to be in little pain. What happened in those final moments would forever change Dr. Mitchell's understanding of consciousness and connection. As William's breathing grew shallower, Simba rose to a sitting position beside him. The lion's eyes never left William's face as he made a series of soft vocalizations unlike anything the medical team had heard before. Not growls or roars, but gentle, almost musical sounds. William opened his eyes one last time, lifted a trembling hand to Simba's mane, and whispered something that only the lion could hear. Then, with a peaceful sigh, William Harrison's hand fell still. The monitors flatlined. Dr. Mitchell moved forward to confirm death, but paused as Simba lowered his massive head to rest his forehead against William's. The lion remained motionless for several long minutes, creating a tableau of such profound grief and dignity that no one in the room could speak. Then, with gentle deliberation, Simba lay down beside William's body, positioning himself as he had every night for the past week, his large paw resting protectively across William's chest. The lion closed his eyes, a deep rumbling purr filling the silence of the cabin. "Should we?" Martha began uncertainly. "No," Thompson said quietly. "Let him say goodbye in his own way." For 3 hours, Simba remained with William's body, occasionally rising to nuzzle his face or lick his hand before settling back down. When he finally stood and walked slowly through the passage to his enclosure, the sanctuary staff were able to attend to William's remains according to his wishes. In the days that followed, Dr. Mitchell helped document the extraordinary case for both medical and wildlife conservation journals. The National Geographic documentary, titled The Lion's Vigil, would go on to win awards and change public perception about the emotional lives of big cats. As for Simba, he lived another year in the cabin in attached enclosure, cared for by the sanctuary staff who had known both him and William for decades. Visitors reported that he would often sit for hours gazing at the bed where William had spent his final days, his behavior neither depressed nor agitated, but reflective, as if remembering. When Simba eventually passed peacefully in his sleep at the remarkable age of 23, he was buried, according to William's instructions, in a quiet corner of the sanctuary beneath an oak tree, where years earlier, a young lion cub with a broken leg had first looked into the eyes of the man who would become his lifelong companion.